This is Art Television.
Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
New SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE users get date offers and win valuable tab computers through a raffle draw.
IWS Aviation.
Hello and welcome to the State of Business on Art Television. I'm Chavika Samarasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines first. The CBS's weekly economic indicators report shows continued PMI growth. Jaffna receives a dedicated economic center. News in detail. The weekly economic indicators released by the CBSL for last week reflects the impact of Putin's invasion of Ukraine and possible lockdowns in China. In the real sector, the index of industrial production in January 2022 decreased by 7.1% to 100.5 compared to January 2021. Among the major subdivisions of the manufacturing industries, coke and refined petroleum products has mainly contributed to this overall decrease. Sustaining the expansion on a month-on-month basis, the purchasing managers' indices for both manufacturing and services activities increased in February 2022, recording 52.5 and 51.8 index values respectively. From 12th to 18th March 2022, crude oil prices showed mixed performance. At the beginning of the week, oil prices fell on optimism that there would be a diplomatic end to tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Demand concerns in China also weighed negatively on prices. However, prices increased toward the end of the period under review on heightened investor uncertainties about the stalled progress in Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations. During this period, Brent and West Texas Intermediate prices decreased by 0.69 and 0.97 US dollars per barrel respectively. In the monetary sector, the weekly average weighted prime lending rate AWPR for the week ending 18th March 2022 increased by 33 basis points to 9.46% compared to the previous week. Reserve money increased compared to the previous week mainly due to currency in circulation. The total outstanding market liquidity was a deficit of 613.226 billion rupees by the end of this week, compared to a deficit of 703.572 billion rupees by the end of the previous week. By 18th March 2022, the all-share price index decreased by 3.03% to 10,353.83 points, and the S&P SL20 index decreased by 1.91% to 3,585.47 points, compared to the index values of last week. In the external sector, during the year up to 18th March 2022, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the US dollar by 25.2%. Given the cross-currency exchange rate movements, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the Indian rupee by 23.6%, the euro by 23.6%, the pound sterling by 23.2%, and the Japanese yen by 22.8% during this period. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has pledged to resume development activities in the northern province which were halted during 2015. The Premier made these observations while addressing a gathering in Jaffna after declaring open the Jaffna Dedicated Economic Centre in Maduwil.
යුද්ධය ඉවර වෙනකොට අද උතුරේ දකින්න තියෙන කිසි දෙයක් දකින්න තිබුණේ නැහැ. තිබුණේ වෙලිවැදුණු ගොඩනැගිලි, කැඩුණු පාරවල්, ගේදොර අහිමි වෙච්ච ජනතාව. නමුත් අවුරුදු දෙකක් විතර ඇතුළත මේ සේරම යලි වෙනස් වුණා. පාරවල් හැදුණා, වතුර දුන්නා, ලක්ෂ ගණන් බිම්බෝප ගැලෙව්වා. විදුලිය දුන්නේ විදුලි වේගයෙන් කිව්වොත් ඒ වඩා නිවැරදි. පාසල් රෝහල් වසර දෙක තුනක් ඇතුළ ඇතුළු. එදා කතාවක් තිබුණේ උතුරේ ජනතාව කට ඇරියේ කන්නයි තත් බදින්නයි විතරයි කියලා. අපි ජනතාව නිදහස් උදා කළා. වසර ගණනාවකට පස්සේ කෝච්චි පාර හැදුවා. යාල්දේවියත් උතුරේ සිට දකුණ යා කළා. උතුරේ ආයෙත් පළාත් සභාව හිටෙව්වා. නමුත් ඒ යුගයේ 2015 අතරමඟ බාධාවක් ආවා. 2015 පස්සේ අපි කරගෙන ආව වැඩ නතර කළා. ඒවා අපි නැවත ආරම්භ කරන්න ඕන. කොරෝනා වසංගතය නොඑන්න අපි මේ ගමන 2019 දී ආරම්භ කරලා නැවත අපි 19 දී මේ රට බාරගත්තට පස්සේ යහපාලනයෙන් ආපස්සට ගිය රට ගොඩනගන්න සැලසුම් කළා. ඒත් අනපේක්ෂිතව කොවිඩ් වසංගතය ආවා. ඒ වෙලාවේ ජනතාවට වග කියන රජයක් ඇටියට අපිට හිතුනේ අපේ ජනතාව ආරක්ෂා කරගන්නයි. අපි ඒක කළා. දකුණු ජනතාව වගේ උතුරු ජනතාවත් වසංගතයෙන් ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න අපිට පුළුවන් වුණා. 2015 පසුව නතර කළ තමුන්නාන්සේලාගේ පළාත්වල සංවර්ධනය කටයුතු වගේම ජන ජීවිතය ගොඩනගන්න කටයුතු අපි ආරම්භ කරන බව ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also inspected the Kankasanturai cement factory and looked at the possibility of turning it into an active production plant again. Accompanied by several other politicians from the northern province, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa opened the Jaffna Dedicated Economic Centre. The Dedicated Economic Centre has been set up to help farmers in the northern province to get a fair price for their produce and to make it easier for consumers to buy vegetables and fruits at affordable prices. The development project cost the government 200 million rupees. The centre is comprised of 20 stalls. Arrangements have been made to receive fruits and vegetable stocks directly from the Dambulla Economic Centre and Jaffna Town's public fair. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also visited the Kankasanturai cement factory, which belongs to the Sri Lanka Cement Corporation. It was closed due to the separatist war, which dragged on for almost 3 decades. The Kankasanturai cement factory was established in 1950 and was shut down in 1990 due to the LTTE terrorist presence. According to a cabinet decision on 8 February last year, it was decided to demolish the derelict buildings while leaving only the usable buildings of the cement factory for future development. However, the latest evaluations have revealed that about 80% of the relevant buildings can be renovated and used. The factory premises spans an area of over 700 acres. However, officials have informed the Premier that most of this area has now been settled by locals. Member of Parliament Angajan Brahmanathan and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Cement Corporation Gamini Ekanayaka were also present during the Premier's visit. Stay tuned. We'll return with more news right after the commercial break.
But if she doesn't lay eggs, she'll have to go. Okay, all right. Your pet can stay.
UHD quality video streaming on Sri Lanka's first, fastest and widest premium fibre network. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fibre.
Everyone does not hold the key to your heart, and it's no secret. You genuinely trusted us with a special place in your heart as we brought good fortune and prosperity into your lives. During our journey of over 50 years, we have made your lives happier and prosperous. Our desire is to see you flourish and witness the prosperity of the entire nation. National Lotteries Board is dedicated to accomplish this humble mission.
NLB, live your dreams.
The condominium property volume index has increased significantly during Q4 2021 with a notable increase of 49% compared to Q4 2020 with a growth of 48.4% compared to Q3 2021. In the backdrop of inflationary pressures and the relatively low levels of return earned on traditional investment avenues, investors are moving toward non-traditional investment avenues, among which investment on apartments is becoming increasingly popular. Further, an observable shift is seen in the price categories of transactions. While 77% of transactions were priced below 25 million rupees a year ago, it has reduced to 49% in Q4 2021. Moreover, the single condominium projects in the Colombo district remain the most preferred category in Q4 2021. Pre-sale deposits, bank loans and equity were the three key funding sources for condominium developments. The proportion of bank loans have increased marginally over the last year. The proportions were calculated to get an overall understanding about the funding structure of condominium developments by averaging the percentages of funds received through different funding sources provided by each developer. Most condominium buyers were Sri Lankan residents and only a few condominiums were purchased by dual citizens and foreigners. Purchase of condominiums for investment purchases and for future living has increased during Q4 2021, while proportions of purchases for immediate living and for rent have reduced significantly. The prime source of funding used for condominium purchasing remained to be buyers' own funds, while an average 27% of buyers have obtained bank loans during Q4 2021. An ad hoc group of sovereign bond holders, including BlackRock and Ashmore, have engaged White & Case to negotiate with the Sri Lankan government over debt repayment. The investors are seeking advice on debt negotiations as Sri Lanka contends with severe economic downturn and growing political unrest. Sri Lanka is facing a balance of payments crisis as foreign exchange reserves has declined by more than half since the beginning of the pandemic. Foreign exchange is needed to import goods to run the economy. Revenue from tourism, an important source of foreign exchange, has declined with the pandemic. Meanwhile, remittances to Sri Lanka have dropped and the black market for foreign currency has flourished. The government owed over $16 billion to international bondholders as of April 2021, according to government data. It also owed around $3 billion directly to China and Japan and around $1 billion to India. Sri Lanka also has outstanding debt to institutional creditors such as World Bank and the Asia Development Bank. In total, Sri Lanka's public debt to gross domestic product ratio in 2021 hovered at just below 120%. According to International Monetary Fund projections. The government for months stated that despite the runoff in foreign exchange reserves, it had no plans to restructure its debts. Sri Lanka faces about $7.5 billion in domestic and foreign debt payments this year. About $4 billion of that includes payments on foreign debts, including the $500 million bond it paid in January and the $1 billion bond maturing in July. Foreign currency reserves totaled $2.31 billion as of February, according to central bank data. Experts questioned whether it can even be used for external debt payments. While debt has traded at distress levels for months, reserves have progressively dwindled. Alternative strategies to raise funds from investors to service incoming debt payments are being sought. Officials recently met with bankers from Rothschild & Co. and Lazards to discuss financing proposals. A debt financing package that would be secured by remittances is also being explored. The government has begun engaging with the IMF, which recently called Sri Lanka's public debt unsustainable, adding that pre-pandemic tax cuts, plus the impact of the pandemic itself, had put the country's financial wherewithal in jeopardy. In response to growing inflation, pressure on the rupee, and a thriving black market for the dollar, the central bank increased interest rates and devalued its fixed exchange rate. With the central bank allowing flexibility, the exchange rate seems to have reached a level surpassing incentives intended to stimulate remittances and conversion of export earnings. With the upward adjustment in the exchange rate, conversion of foreign currency exchange earnings through formal channels has shown a marked increase during March 2020. The current exchange rate provides a higher return on foreign exchange remittances and a higher rupee value on the net earnings of exporters. Following these developments, the government has decided not to implement the proposed scheme for additional incentives. Additionally, the central bank has raised $175 million via a successful issuance of Sri Lanka development bonds after almost a year. The CBSL at auction accepted $152.54 million in bids submitted for the 6-month tenure, and through the issuance window, a further $23 million were accepted. The weighted average yield was 9.48%. Bids received amounted to $185.0 $8 million US. The weighted average yield was 9.48%. Bids received amounted to $185.08 million US. The successful issuance of SLDBs has been attributed to the free floated exchange rate and higher rates. This auction was for $50 million US with possible upsizing by an additional 3 times based on favorable market response. Finally, local news reports that Sri Lanka repaid $130 million US of debt due to China. While the government has explored the possibility of a deferment, it was ruled out by China. Of Sri Lanka's outstanding debt, China's share is estimated at 13% behind ISBs, those due to multilateral financial institutions, and Japan. Sri Lanka has to pay nearly $7 billion US in foreign debt this year. The $130 billion US payment to China was viewed as another test by international financiers to evaluate Sri Lanka's debt repayment capacity, as was the case with the $500 million US in international sovereign bonds settled in January. The next challenge is the payment of the $1 billion US in ISBs, which is due in July. Up next are the stock updates.
Now you can buy your ultra-fast fiber connection online through sltmobitel.lk and get special discounts.
Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended on positive notes today. The all-share price index gained 67.91 points to close at 10,421.74, and the S&P SL20 gained 29.83 points to close at 3,615.3. The turnover was 1.1 billion rupees, and over 51 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. That's all our news for today. Take care and good night.